Okay, so this is Marc Means of Merlin Public Media, and tonight we're starting a brand new series of shows. This is called Talking Shit with Merlin, and it's basically exactly what the name says. People I know, people I don't, talking shit about shit. It'll be what it is. So tonight, being the first episode, we have as a guest one of my all-time favorite people in the world to talk shit with, a person I talked shit to before they talked back to me, before they talked. Tonight on Talking Shit with Merlin is Mr. Marc Means, my brother. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Oh, internet is actually cooperating today, so we can actually pull this off.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so. We had some fun times when we tried it before. So what's going on, man?
I got into a fight with technology today. That's been my day so far today. And I tried to make some equipment do things that I found out later it's not physically possible to do.
Oh, who hasn't done that?
Yeah, there were some things thrown, and there was some anger, and then I talked to somebody in engineering, and they said, well, the reason you can't do that is because it's not possible.
Don't you hate hearing that phrase? Makes you want to try it all over again, doesn't it?
I had spent like 3 hours trying to figure this out with multiple people before I was finally told, well, you can't do it. That's why.
Oh, God, you got to tell us what it was.
So I'm setting up to record interviews from home for the upcoming high school football season here in Ohio.
Okay.
And I'm using pretty much the same setup I am now, but I fed my cell phone in through one of the pots on the 2-channel mixer.
Okay.
I could hear the audio from my microphone recording into my recording program. I could hear the audio from my phone in the recording program. I could hear the people talking on the phone when I called them, but they couldn't hear me because I talked back that way. I had set it up is not possible through this board.
Well, here's a quick clue, because I've done this. You can get a Skype phone number for cheap and bring that phone number into your Skype conversation and rock and roll.
Well, I have a different set of equipment that I used for the same exact thing last year. That's going to be the fallback because it is actually designed to connect a cell phone to it as a mixer and call sporting events. So I'm just going to use it to record interviews instead. I was trying to do the mixer with, all the processing and everything and try and make it sound better. But we're going to go with the fallback instead because I have 5 interviews I have to record tomorrow or the next week by Wednesday night.
Oh, that's busier than me. I've only got one tonight for the next 6 nights.
Well, these will only be between 3 and 5 minutes, but I have 2 high school football games next week, so that's 4 coaches. And then I recorded an interview for our other game because I have the equipment that they don't. So I have 5 interviews I have to do, by Thursday afternoon at the latest.
Are they all scheduled and ready to rock?
I'm not going to contact any of the coaches till after tomorrow when they're done with their scrimmages.
Well, that's a bit of decency. Let them get a clear-headed day before they go.
So, yeah, I've talked to all these coaches. I know them all already, so it shouldn't be that hard to get everything scheduled.
So what's this thing called that you're using?
Now I'm using a multi-mix 2-channel mixer.
Okay.
But what I'm going to use to record the game is something we've been using for sports for a while. And I'm trying to think of exactly what it's called right now. And of course, the name is escaping me and the equipment's in the other room.
Of course.
I know it's a sports mix is what the general term for it is. It's called a JK Sport Mix. That's what it's called.
Okay.
And
that's kind of cool.
Been using that for years.
Well, when you find something that works, you keep it. Yeah, I've got this M Audio Studio USB mic that I've been using for, 9 or 10 years. And I'm using it right now, and I think it was a couple $100. But basically, what it does when you plug it in is it makes a secondary sound card.
Oh, okay.
So my headphone's plugged into the microphone. The microphone is plugged into the laptop, and then it's connected to Skype when Skype finds it, which is the problem I had the other day in the first part of our kerfluffle was the laptop would not find the microphone anywhere.
Well, I've been using this JK Sport Mix for so long that when I started doing this, we had what would look like a portable cigarette lighter for your car phone.
Right.
That we would plug in, and then we'd plug in the bag phone to that, and then connect the bag phone to the JK. Then it went to a smaller cell phone. Now it went to, it's the small cell phone that actually props up on a stand. We went from calling the studio line to doing what we're doing now. We connect directly to the studio through Skype, so it's as good of a digital signal as we have, depending on the cell signal of where we're calling the game.
Yeah, depending on a cell signal can be, well, it's probably safer back there. You're much more metropolitan than we are. Cell signal at my house is iffy at best most of the time. We're in the middle of bloody nowhere. So, you got to watch to see when you get a signal.
Depending on what service, we're 5G right here where I'm sitting right now.
Hell, I'm 5G when I have it, and I can get it at my desk, but I can't get it in the master bedroom or the kitchen, or it's just, it's weird. But,
I'm in the process of switching over to one of the cell companies' 5G internet service.
And you can plug them if you want, man.
It's going to be T-Mobile because that's my plan. So I've tested it. I've ran everything through. I know it's going to work. It's going to give me a hell of a lot faster speed than I have right now with the outgoing provider that is super slow. So that's why I'm switching.
So what are you going to have when you get this?
I think it said like 120 minimum.
Okay.
And I'm at 14 right now.
Ouch. See, we just got fiber. I can't believe we actually got fiber out here in the middle of nowhere. And they replaced a company that I never had a kind word for. So shout out to TWN Internet. These guys are badass. I'm getting 400 up and 400 down.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna seem like light speed compared to what I've been used to, but for what I do, I've been fine with what I had. I mean, I do a little bit of streaming. I work from home, so as long as I have an internet signal, I can connect to my office at the radio studio. So, it works for me. I don't need it to do a whole lot.
Well, as long as it works, and I've got the station here, and there's many days that I'm streaming from the desk, and there's many days that I'm streaming from the server. So that 400 up has really made a difference for me. I always have a good, solid outgoing signal for the radio station when I'm running it live from the desk, which is really that's important to me. And we've had nothing but like Roku boxes for I don't know since like the year they came out. We don't have a TV service, and we rather like it that way. We pay for what we want to see.
I have a TV service. I have a couple of streaming services that I subscribe to. I have a couple that I get as a T-Mobile subscriber for my cell phone plan, which is always nice because
that is nice. What did they give you?
I've gotten the MLB.TV package for the last 2 years, so I can watch every Major League Baseball game that's not in my market because those are blacked out.
That's cool for you.
And I got a year and a week of Apple TV Plus.
Never seen it.
It was something I would have never, probably even thought of. But there's a few shows that we've enjoyed watching on that. But I was thinking about this conversation, and with your streaming company and the one I do my show for, we do have one thing in common. We use the same app provider.
We do.
And from what I've heard, they're actually based locally here, not too far from me in West Middlesex, Pennsylvania.
Well, that's badass. And considering most of the people that tune in are within 100 miles or so of here, where the hell are you, bro?
I am in Niles, Ohio, which is about an hour from Cleveland, and I am about a little more than an hour from Pittsburgh. So I'm kind of in between the two.
They must have increased the highway speed since I left back there, because when I left, it we used to average 2 hours either way.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten a lot better. I mean, my estimate's probably a little off depending on where you're going. It's more than an hour to downtown Cleveland. It's definitely more than an hour to downtown Pittsburgh, but I haven't been to either one of them in close to 3 years now.
Well, I have become, and it's shocking to me as much as anybody, I've become quite the homebody. I don't, and it's, yes, the COVID helped. But I've got, 180 is here, my chickens are here, my gardens are here. I go to the store occasionally, and I do a couple of light gigs. Other than that, I don't leave the house, and I like it.
And you know what? I'm pretty much in the same boat. I work from home. Occasionally, I have to leave to go to Western Reserve Radio studio like I did yesterday, because we did a 2-hour high school football special. Other than that, unless I'm, going to mom's or doing something for her, I pretty much don't go anywhere either. And I miss going to games, because the only games I've gone to are, games I'm getting paid to be at the last, year and a half or so. And I definitely miss, going to baseball games and things like that. But I have absolutely no problem with not leaving the house for an entire weekend. It doesn't faze me at all. It never really has. So I can just hang out here with my wife and watch TV and cook dinner and just kind of do a whole lot of nothing, and we like it that way.
Yeah, it's not the person I was even 15 years ago. Go out, do a gig, go out to work, and go, and now, I mean, and a lot of that is, well, let's not go into specifics, but a lot of that's kind of been put on me. I don't want to go into that too much, but it's planting season here in the desert. I mean, I know, and I tell everybody, and they're like, it's summer. What the heck do you plant in summer? Is going to die. We put in 4 different kinds of basil and Armenian cucumbers and cucamelons and a bunch of other stuff. And we're waiting on garlic and carrots and beans and cabbage and lettuce and another like week and a half, 2 weeks. But the growing season here is whacked compared to, what I grew up with. We're planting, other than maybe June, July, we're planting something. We don't do frost. We don't do snow. So we've got 3, some years 4 solid growing seasons for different things. And it's just, it's neat to watch how plants and nature and gardeners can adapt to what is a really harsh environment here.
It's been a weird year here for that. I would say in the last 7 weeks, I've probably cut my grass 3 times because of the lack of rain that we've had. My mother-in-law grows all kinds of vegetables at her house. Tomatoes aren't even in and ripe yet, and we're early August, so we're definitely behind on that.
Yes.
So it is, I mean, corn was nowhere near to knee high by the 4th of July around
Understood.
here. So, I mean, it's been an absolutely weird season. Yeah, I'll probably cut tomorrow for the 4th time in a month, maybe longer. All I know is it's going to be absolutely miserable allergies the next 3 days, because I downloaded an app, and you put in, your area, and it kind of learns about you and then tells you what days are going to be worse than others. But the problem with that is you wake up, you pick up your phone, and it's the first thing you see. Allergies are going to be worse today. It's like the notification right at the top.
Okay.
And on this app, if I have anything over a 6.5, I know it's going to be a rough day for me.
What is that number, 6.5?
It starts at 0 is, the pollen count is the lowest. You're going to be great.
Okay. Pollen count is what the number is then.
Right. And it's supposed to be 9.8 on Friday.
Oh my God.
So the next couple of days are going to be miserable.
Yeah,
Of course,
stay
I
in the
have
house,
plans
turn on
outside.
the air.
I'm going to a football game tomorrow night, so that's going to be fun.
I suspect it will not be all that much fun with that kind of. And we have like two pollen seasons, spring and fall. The only thing that really bothers me anymore is a lysoloma. What's the common name for it? It's called a feather tree. Okay,
Okay.
really light, beautiful, feathery leaflets. There's no full leaves on this tree. It's little tiny leaflets in clusters that look like a leaf. The pollen on that will knock me to the ground. And we have an olive tree in the backyard. And when that blooms, I stay in the front yard.
Yeah, and we tried to go swimming at a friend of ours a couple weekends ago, and I got in the water, I got out of the water, and I came back home into the air conditioning. And we go there all the time, and they have, it's beautiful. They have so many plants and trees and flowers. You would love it, but something was blooming, something was happening that it was time to go home, and it was time to go away. But like
Yeah.
with this app, I've learned, like for me, and I don't know the technical names. Like it's ragweed is always one that bothers me.
Yeah.
Grass bothers me a lot, and then the other one that comes up is it cenopods or chenopods? It looks like a pine tree, but I'm not quite sure what that is. I've gotten to the point when it's bad, and people look at me like I've lost my mind. But I will, I'll take an over-the-counter allergy pill. I wait 45 minutes, and if it's really bad, I wear a mask like I'm going, out to the grocery store or to the doctor's or to work or wherever, with everything that's happened with COVID. And it looks silly, but it helps me, not be a mess like I look like my dog ran away by the time I'm done cutting the grass. And the grass front to back, cut the whole thing, trim, leaf blow, all that takes me 45 minutes. And I'm usually just a snotty mess by the time it's over, even if I take something.
That's another benefit of living here. If you've got a lawn, as an individual, well, you're freaking rich.
Right?
And stupid.
What do you need grass for?
Everybody wants grass, man. I moved. I wanted grass when I first moved out here. It's just one of those things that it's kind of beaten into us over time. Lawns are
a pain in the ass to cut,
or the mark of a man. I mean,
right?
That was Dad's perspective on your lawn. Your lawn was who you were.
And there was a time that I was in that mode. But as long as it's cut and the neighbors in the city's not mad at me, I'm good. And that's really changed over the last few years. It was, I was out there raking the little sunspots out and wanting to do. No, I'm past that now.
And when's the peak grass growing season? June, July, August.
Right.
And what are my normal temperatures? And this year has been amazing. But I'll have in that June, July, August, I'll usually have 6 weeks of 120 degrees plus.
Now we have had 10 90-degree days or warmer this year, which we only had 4 last year. So it's a big jump up. But the biggest problem has been the humidity. Like today is the first day I've been able to open up, get a nice breeze, with not all closed up because of the air. And I'm looking right now, we're at 58% humidity and we're at 58% dew point.
Yeah.
But, that was in the middle 70s for the last few days. The dew point just now starting to drop. And they're talking dew point in the upper 40s for Friday night. So I can't wait for that day.
We don't even do a dew point. Okay, let me bring it up here. Right now, the humidity is low. Most of the last 2 weeks, I've been 50% up. And I've been in the highs from say 103, 104 to maybe 112. That's been miserable. There's a saying in these parts that when the humidity gets above 13%, we get bitchy. It's true.
13? We've been close to, mid 70s the last week.
Well, the 40, 50, 60% that we've been getting is literally unprecedented. But the other side of that is, and let me find some wood here to knock really hard, we have not broke 120 once this summer.
120.
Normally, like I said a couple minutes ago, we normally have 5 to 6 weeks of 120 plus, where the nighttime low does not get below 105. And you watch 105, especially if you're growing tomatoes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
At 105, tomatoes go into, for lack of a better phrase, survival mode.
Right.
All they're doing is trying to stay alive.
Makes sense.
And we've had years where, the tomatoes, we plant them and they live through the summer, and at the end of the summer, they're beat to shit. And then when the weather starts to cool, they're like, hey, man, this is kind of nice. Well, let's come back to life. And they do. We have a basil plant on the front porch that is 3 years old. It's an annual. It usually gives you one, it's like I said, everything is different here.
Right.
But, and we love our basil, homemade pesto. Do you know what pesto sauce is?
Yeah, it's that green stuff.
Yeah, we make our own. It's just to die for.
So you would be surprised. Like, we actually had this conversation here a couple of days ago. Like, everybody that knows me thinks, I have, MLB Network or Sports Center on 24 hours a day. In the last few years, the things I watch now are more Food Network, History Channel. That's become like we're watching some kind of cooking or some kind of history program pretty much every night. And I've learned, and we've tried a lot more things than I thought I ever would. Like, I would not. Like, we watched the home remodeling show last night. Like, I never, 10 years ago, I wouldn't even have thought to watch something like that.
And I probably still wouldn't.
Yeah, you know what? And the History Channel's become a lot of what I watch. But I got to tell you a story since we're talking about weather. It's about a month and a half, 2 months ago. We're watching the local news, and they were talking about a day. I want to say it was late July. And it was 1936, and it was 102. And I don't remember, here. And so I proceeded to call our mother that night, and I said, so do you remember the day it was 102? She's like, I don't think so. I'm like, well, you were just about 4 months old because it was 102 in, July of 1936. She's like, oh, yeah, it was so hot, and she goes into this whole, like, made-up story, just having fun with it about, like, I don't think you remember, 4 months old and it was 102.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine what 102 feels like here. I don't think I want to.
Well, we've had that, like I said, with what for us is exceptional humidity. And, I'll kind of take the humidity and roll with it and stay in the air conditioning. But the fact that we haven't seen 120, and please, guys, if you're listening to me, I'm not asking to see it. I'm just commenting on it.
Right. Oh, no, thank you.
I will. I'll take, some heavy humidity for, a few weeks and stay out of the 120s because, 115 when I was, I've been out here, 26, 27 years. 113, 115 when I first got out of here was, okay, fine, I'm working. And, okay, 120, I'm going in and coming out. And now it's 112 and I'm 63 and I'll go out for 10 or 15 minutes and come back in and sit down and then repeat. But it's different here. You know, had it never been for Juanita, I would never seen this place. I've never seen the desert. I'm so grateful that I have. It has a different kind of beauty. And I know you've heard me say when I come back there, can somebody please turn down the green? We don't have, well, the open desert doesn't have a lot of green. You know, our house is a little different. We've got to have 20 some trees in the ground right now, and at least a dozen seedlings started and 8 citrus plants on the back patio waiting to go in the ground when the weather cools. Yeah, we've got green in the yard, but the area around us doesn't do a whole heck of a lot of green. But you know, it's home. I like it. I don't know.
We have one plant, and it's something that is kept inside a good part of the year. We don't have a good history with keeping plants in the house alive. Back, I don't know, a week or so before Christmas, my wife brought home a poinsettia from work that was going to die if nobody took care of it. So we brought it in, took care of it. It started to die back, I don't know, maybe end of May. We put it outside, and it's absolutely taken off. I water it like every couple of days. And I'm actually I think I might be able to keep it alive long enough for it to bloom for 2 Christmases, which I've never done before.
That'd be really cool.
And it's really rare for me, so we'll have to let you know if it happens, because unlike you and Dad, I don't have the green thumb.
Okay, let me say right up front, I don't have the green thumb. I happen to have a wife who has a green magic wand.
Okay.
And who studies environment and plants and this and that. I mean, she spent 2 weeks picking out the 5 types of garlic that we're going to be growing this year. It's research first and foremost with anything. Does it grow here? Because I mean, it's hot here.
Yeah.
You know, does it grow here? And then there's that, can you make it grow here? And then there's just give up and don't even try. But we experiment, with different stuff, and it's kind of fun to go out in the morning and water, and we call it grazing. Certain parts of the year, grazing is peaked, like tomato season. When the broccoli comes up, as you're walking around and watering, and we don't grow the standard broccoli. We grow there's a name for it, and it's going heritage broccoli, an old broccoli. And instead of one big bunch, it's little florets all over the plant.
Well, that's different.
So you're walking by and you pinch one off and you throw it in your mouth, and you're going around, and watering here is at least from, say, May to September is every single day.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember the exact number, because like I told you, my in-laws do a lot of growing vegetables and stuff like that. I think they have to, if it doesn't rain, they have to water. I think they said every 32 hours. I think that sounds right.
Okay. And a lot of it depends on what you're growing, and I've got an irrigation system on everything that isn't in an individual pot. So that I just go out and I turn it on and I set a timer, and but the trees are hand watered, and a lot of other things are hand watered, but a lot of things are go out, open the valve, and come in the house for an hour.
I don't have anything like that to worry about.
Well, yes, and you don't have my heat to worry about either.
Which is a good. I'll take not having both of those. Like I have, and we were just talking about this when we went up for our walk tonight. Like I have, I don't know what it's called. It's in the corner by the front porch. And I don't know if it's a snowball bush or what it is. And that's part of the problem to get to in a minute. But it's one of those where I did some research on it. And it's one of those where you're supposed to dump coffee grounds at the base of the plant.
Okay. There's a lot of those.
It flowers white. But if you put the coffee grounds on it, it flowers like a light blue.
Okay. It's chemistry. Yeah.
But a lot of these that I have taken off the last couple years, and I know I need to cut them back. But the problem is I don't know what the hell they're called to research them to know when the right time is to cut them back.
I don't know the name of it, but there is a plant ID app.
The only one I found was ridiculously expensive.
Well, none of them that I know of are free. And they're all more or less tuned to, like, you guys and not us, which is why I don't have one.
Naturally.
But I think there's also something on Google. You take a picture and you say identify it.
Oh, really?
Several people have told me about it. I've not used it because, generally around here,
well, you probably know what you're planting.
Well, we do, and a lot of times we're already using, God help me, the Latin name for the plant.
No chance. It's hard enough for learning how to pronounce, athletes that I have to cover's names. I'm not even going to try Latin.
Well, I did a little Latin. Both of us did a little Latin back in high school, but
because that is pet peeve number one for me.
What?
I want to make sure I know how to say everybody's name right.
Oh, sure. It's a terrible insult if you don't.
Well, because I was taught from the beginning, with the high school game specifically, call the game as if all of the football players' grandma is listening to you.
Okay.
And that's kind of the philosophy I've gone with. So I will ask an athletic director. I go to the PA announcer for the home school because I figured if anybody's going to know how to pronounce at least the home players' names right, it's going to be the home PA announcer.
Of course.
For the college games that I do, all the sports information directors in our league are old school. So when they send you their media packet for that week, they all have a phonetic pronunciation guide.
Oh, no, that's cool.
But the problem is at the Division III level, most of these teams have between 85 and 120 players. Now, granted, not all of them play. Obviously, not all of them even dress, but you got to learn them all because you never know who's going to come in.
That sounds like a bit of a challenge. And I'm sure as you've gone over the years, you start recognizing weird spellings and stuff, and
Well, I've this story is perfect for this. So, the three most unique names I've ever run across. There were two twins, and their names were Lamangelo and Larangelo, and it was spelled orange jello and lemon jello.
Okay.
The worst one was, and I'll spell for you, Shithhead, pronounced Shithid.
Sure it is.
That's what they told me it was.
I didn't Absolutely,
think it was.
I agree.
Didn't think it was, but that's how they told me how to say it, and I was like, well, that's a good thing because this is a high school basketball game on radio. I better figure this out quickly.
Yes. If you would have mispronounced that, you might have gotten a little beep from the old FCC saying, "Hey, man."
Little fine, yeah.
See, that's one of the absolute pure blessings of internet radio, as you also know. You know, short of libel and slander,
right? You can pretty much do anything.
You can pretty much say any. And I don't know. Did I tell you the story about my first podcast?
I don't think so.
Okay, so a dear friend of mine, a nationally known LGBTQ plus activist, was here in town, and he got a morning show, 2 hours, 1 day a week at a local talk radio station.
Okay.
And the FCC flags flew because he did not know how to bite his tongue.
Yeah. And that whole process is interesting and how things get reported.
He is talking to me and he's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, and this was, I mean, podcasts were barely known back then. I'm like, why don't we do a podcast? And he's like, what's that? And I'm like, well, it's on the internet and da. And he's like, can we do that? I'm like, sure. And he's like, what's it take? I'm like, I don't know. I'll get back to you. At which time I'm like, well, shit. I got to learn how to do a podcast.
Well, I would have more than 105 episodes in mind if I would have listened to you.
You'd have had, yeah.
I'd have had several hundred.
We did. There was London Calling was the first one, and that was like 3 years. And then we did the Empty Closet series, and then there was and I know the guys are listening, and they're going to give me shit about this. There was like 4 incarnations of the show, 7.5 years, every week except for holidays and January. We took the entire month of January off because, if you remember back then, I did a jewelry show the entire month of January.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The internet out there was about 0.2.
Oh, worse than mine.
You could do nothing. So, I mean, I was all like, well, they say we've got free internet with the space. And then I tried it. I'm like, yeah, we're done for January.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a break. But I'm actually... tonight, actually, is the 3rd installment. I'm playing those shows on Merlin Public Media right now every Wednesday because that's when we did them, from beginning to end. So I've got, 7.5 years of Wednesday show covered.
My show wouldn't even have happened. I was doing a baseball show with the same guy for a while, and he took a job with a newspaper because he's a sports writer on the complete other side of the state. So we obviously have the technology to continue to do it, but with him starting a new job, we decided, that the show was going to go away.
Okay.
Well, we decided that I was going to fill the slot and do my own show because I had done it, on a commercial station. So the next process was we got to come up with a name because if it's a podcast, it's got to be catchy. It's got to have a good name. So I honestly can't even tell you who came up with the name, but it's stuck. And, we've used the phrase, the show's called By All Means. And it kind of ties in to me, to you, obviously. And I've also had our other cousin, Mark, on the show before when I really want to confuse the hell out of people.
Yeah, and I wish I'd have grabbed that before you because, to be perfectly honest, that's a badass name. Let me give you one more. I've been interviewing bands as a part of all of this, and a metal band from Colorado came through and did a local show, and I talked to some of the guys, but the name of this band is When Darkness Falls.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is the best band name ever.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
When do you hear the band play? When you're in the room and the darkness falls.
Right.
And the lights come up, and it's just when I'm talking to them, like, how did you come up with that name? And we're like, we don't remember.
Yeah.
We've had it for about 8 years. We probably all got drunk one day and threw out names, and that's the general story with all these bands. They got drunk one day and started throwing out names.
Yeah, I mean, because with my terrestrial background, pretty much everything I do, even the podcast, the games, all that, it's more like a traditional radio broadcast. Like we've been talking about this for a while, and I said, what are we going to do? And when there was no plan, that is like the complete opposite of how I approach radio. Because my show, even the 2-hour one I did yesterday, is scheduled down to the minute. I mean, it's not that precise. Like, I know, and this segment runs from here to here, and I want to ask these 4 questions to my guest or cover these 4 topics, and it's timed out like that to the minute. I know what I'm going to do for my pregame for football. Like, each segment before a commercial, I know exactly what's going to happen, and it's just how I've always kind of done it, because I like to work in routine doing games, and the listener knows what to expect when during the broadcast.
And as you can obviously tell, I am the exact opposite.
Yeah, more of the free-flowing, like, natural podcast style rather than the not scripted, but the planned out radio style of a show.
Yeah, it's like, even you. Well, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. It'll happen.
Well, I had that exact, like I said, my wife and I went for a walk, before we started recording. And I said, he's not, I haven't told me anything. I don't know what we're going to talk about. I can't plan anything. And she knows when it comes to stuff like this, that's what I do. I plan things out. I'm already starting to work on, the games that are for next week. I mean, I don't script things because I find scripted stuff like that, it just sounds bad. It sounds scripted.
Uh-huh.
And I know what I'm going to say. Like, I know I'm going to tell you, who's doing the game. I'm going to tell you who the 2 teams are playing. I'm going to tell you where we're at. I'm going to tell you the weather. That's going to be right off the bat first. Then I take a break. I play a pre-recorded coach's interview. I take another break. I play another coach's interview. I do the starting lineups, and it's time to play, whatever sport it may be. And that's just how I do it. And it fits in a 20-minute block. Because what I am doing now is I assume pretty unique in the streaming terrestrial world of radio, because we produce 2 high school games on an average Friday night on our streaming company. And they are then simulcast on 2 different terrestrial corporate radio stations in our area. And I don't know of many streaming type situations like ours that also partner with, a large radio corporation.
Yeah, that's kind of unusual.
I mean, I happen to work for both of them, so that has a lot to do with it.
You got an in there, yeah.
Right. I'm sports director at one station, and I'm one of the lead play-by-play guys on the other, so it works out. But it's been a partnership that has, worked well for everyone. And we have gotten to the point with our technology and our chief engineer on the corporate side of things where everything runs on their end, completely automated without a board op.
Not even an op.
We have a board op that produces our games and our studios for, IDs, commercials, all of that stuff for a game. But we have it set up with tones. And I'm not quite sure, like, they pick up our feed through some equipment that sends it on a stream feed to them, and that's how it goes on the air. We have tones that take the programming on the terrestrial station. We send the tones down. We take over, the streaming station takes over. They have all that time blocked out in the format for the terrestrial station. When we're done with the game, we send tones down on our close, and that takes the terrestrial station back to its regularly scheduled programming. So they have no board ops for that whatsoever on their end.
Wow.
And it started with, and we've moved to a more streaming internet based for all of this year, but it actually started where we were feeding them our signal over a Marty.
Okay, tell people what that is because a lot of them don't know.
So a Marty is a small transmitter, 10, 15 watt transmitter that you set up with a large antenna that you never stand in front of when it's on. And you can send a signal back to the station that picks it up and puts it on the air. And that's how, when I started doing games, part of the process was we'd drive to all the schools, we'd climb up to the top of the press box of the stadium. I would stay at the bottom on the ground because I liked it there better.
Uh-huh.
And we would mount an antenna on the side of the stadium and then line of sight, try to point it back to our towers. And that's how we would feed the game to the station. And that's completely gone by the wayside now with all the different technologies that we've got. But one studio to another is probably a mile and a half. So we just set up an antenna up outside, flipped the switch on the Marty, and that's how we fed the terrestrial station to feed last year. And we've got a much cleaner signal for this year. And, that worked for year one, but we're always trying to improve. So that's the plan for year two. The Marty is still set up in our studios in a place where we can keep it cool because they are known for overheating and the crystals, don't like that.
Uh-huh.
So it's an emergency backup if we need it, but hopefully we won't. But I'm always at a game, so I can't help that anyway.
Yeah. A little broadcast tech history lesson here. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, old school radio.
Yeah.
Because I could not believe when I sat down and figured it out. Because you said you out there, what, like 25, 26 years?
Yeah, something like that. I'm seeing, I think it was 96.
Yeah, and that was the first year I started calling high school football games. So I'm at 25. This is my 25th season.
Okay.
Well, if you want to be technical, 25 years around it, 24 seasons because, I took 2020 off.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't do any games that year. Sure did.
That was a bad year, man. I watched my business die in one afternoon.
Yeah, and I made the mistake, and you're going to say, why? I sat down and figured out on a normal year, if I would have done all the games I was supposed to, what I would have made additionally to that year. And that was a large mistake.
Yeah, sounds like one.
That was a real couple of rough days when I was like, well, it would have been that. Oh, why did you do that?
Uh-huh. And once you've done that, you can't undo that. It's in your head. No,
you cannot. You cannot go back and unsee something like that. And
yeah,
the college that I work for, I opted out of that entire season. And when I told them that was my choice, they said, your seat will be ready for you the next year or whenever you're ready to come back. And it was.
That's pretty cool. That's
cool. I've been with them for 12 years now. So it's a pretty good relationship.
Give them a plug.
I work for Grove City College in Grove City, Pennsylvania. It is a very small Division III school, about 45 minutes from downtown Pittsburgh.
Okay, we're doing plugs. Plug your stuff, man.
So the streaming site is Western Reserve Radio. It's westernreserveradio.com. I do a live local sports podcast every Tuesday night from 5 until 6. Sometimes we go 5 until 7 if there's something big going on. And it is also picked up and carried by the terrestrial station that I work for, which is Sports Radio 1240 in Youngstown. And my podcast is available on their Facebook, Twitter, and website through the corporate platform.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it took a little time to get the audience that wasn't listening live to find the new location.
Uh-huh.
But in the last 2 weeks, the numbers are back where they used to be.
Cool.
So yeah, I love the fact that we have this kind of intertwined relationship between streaming and terrestrial. And I know I can get away with a lot more on streaming, but when you've been doing this for 20 plus years, you're programmed in a certain way. And you don't come close to saying things that you could say during a streaming podcast. So it's just kind of, it's in the programming. Like now I have done streaming games where instead of just audio, it's video. And I can't get out of the habits of how I call games for radio because That is all I've ever done for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So you over describe things when there's video. So it's definitely a learning process. Like, I don't have to say the score because it's always up there. I don't have to say the time left in the game because it's always up there. But you still do because it's something you've always done. Like I did a baseball tournament in DuBois, Pennsylvania, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years ago. And the entire baseball field was turf. There was no grass anywhere. So a common expression when a pitch is in the dirt, you'll say, breaking ball in the dirt, curveball in the dirt, whatever. And I called 102 innings in 5 days, which was rough, but it was a blast. And I could not get out of the habit of saying in the dirt, and there was no dirt. And people, watching the stream, they saw there was no dirt. And I would even say, I'm like, it's been dirt for, 100 years and up until we invented turf baseball fields in the last 5 years. So forgive me. It's just what I'm used to saying.
Yeah.
And there still is no dirt. Just like everything here is turf now. There's almost all of the high school football fields are turf. And when I started, there was 3. There was 2 major high schools and Youngstown State. And now even the small schools of our area, and not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them have turf now. Our alma mater has had turf for 9 years. And it's in the long run, it's more cost effective for the school.
Oh, certainly.
But it's different for the football players. It's really different for the band members.
I can't remember where it was the first time I marched on turf. It was like, oh my God.
And that was the old school turf where it felt like it was, turf on cinder blocks.
Yeah.
Or concrete. You got to pick your feet up differently.
Uh-huh.
If you don't, you end up on the ground.
Not good in a marching band.
No.
If you go down, others go down. It gets real ugly real fast.
Yeah, and I unfortunately have never been part of that, but I've seen it happen. In fact, I remember I was telling somebody recently, I said, well, when my brother and sister were in the band, they had close to 400 people. And we've got bands around here now that have, 85. Obviously, the population is down in this area.
Yeah.
Because the numbers are down for football teams comparatively. And we don't have, how would I describe it simply? 1 through 7, 1 is the biggest school, 7 is the smallest school. Our area no longer has a Division I school because of the population has gone down so much. We have
did not know that.
We have 2 or 3 Division II schools like a Warren Harding or an Austin Town Fitch, but there are no Division I schools left in this area. Because people left and they haven't come back.
Is that a drop statewide or like more or less in your area?
It depends on the area. I know it is definitely a drop in this area because, band numbers are down. Number of football players going out are down. It is, it's just down a lot. And what they do now here is they redo those numbers every 2 years. So you may be a Division III school for 2 years, but then the next year you're a Division IV school, which means you have, and it's based on the number of boys enrolled in the school, just how they set up sports. And it's, some schools change every 2 years, some don't. But I will tell you, we had 6 or 7 schools, maybe even 8, go down and only had 2 go up. And the 2 that went up were the much smaller communities, not the big ones that went up. That's just kind of the way this area is right now.
Well, don't send them out here. We don't have any bloody water.
Right?
Yeah, we're in the middle of I don't know. There was a severe drought here when I moved, and I don't know what they're calling it now, but I mean like epic drought. I mean, we got a little rain a little while ago. I mean, we haven't had measurable rain this year, really, other than one time.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. Like a couple days ago, it rained really, really hard for 10 minutes and then it stopped. So it looked like there was water everywhere, but 10 minutes after that, it was all gone.
Uh-huh.
Because it's just so dry. I said I've barely cut my grass this year. I mean, I fill my gas tank for my mower sometimes 2 or 3 times. I'm still on one, and we're almost done with cutting grass.
Geez, and here when we get rain, I mean, the ground here is, for lack of a better phrase, baked.
Right? No, yeah, that makes sense.
And from centuries of like really hot. And there's been considerably more rain around us than on us. But when the rain hits hard and heavy, it does not go into the ground. It goes across the ground, and it takes things with it.
Well, that doesn't sound like fun.
There's a little town just over the first range of mountains here called Golden Valley. It's a valley. I don't know where the hell the gold came from.
There's probably gold in that valley at one point.
Actually, from what I've been able to find, no, not there. We do have it out here. But there was in Golden Valley, which is nowhere near any water. They had to do a swift water rescue the other day, about 5-6 days ago, because there's these things called washes, which is basically rain channels coming down from the mountains.
Okay.
And when that water hits, I mean, it's flying. And, don't be there. There's an old desert camper phrase that says, don't pitch your tent under a smoke tree. Smoke trees grow where there's been massive amounts of water occasionally, like a big rain in a wash. If it's a smoke tree, it's probably in a wash. If you pitch your tent there when it rains, you're going to be 3 miles down, the range and, dead.
But that doesn't sound good at all.
No, it's like I said, the ground is not, it doesn't absorb the rain. Now, if we get enough rain, and we're going to, we've had a little bit, actually, Lake Mead was up 3 inches, which is miraculous. But if we get good rain, say December, January, the most beautiful thing you'll ever see is a desert bloom. These seeds just sit out there, and the wild plants, and they're designed to wait. Wait for water, wait for water, wait for water, and I've seen it like 4 times. You get up in the morning, and the desert is just flowers, and it happened in a day, and it might last 2 days. But you just get up and there's just, flowers everywhere. And the flowers, the plants, they do their job and they do it fast. Okay, I've got water. I'm going to grow. I'm going to make more seeds so that my species continues. And now I'm going to die. And it's a couple days. But for that couple of days, it's glorious.
It sounds like something I see a lot of that stuff. Like I'll watch, I watch University of Arizona basketball, so they show a lot of the desert and the red rocks and the saguaros and all that as the transitional shots.
Uh-huh.
So you get a lot of that, which then you have to go figure out exactly what it is and look it up, and then it turns into research something on your phone while you're missing the basketball game.
Uh-huh. Which would probably be more fun for me, but that's the one thing that we just, sports is like a massive part of your life and has been forever. And it literally, other than talking to you, has no role at all in mine.
Yeah, that's the one complete thing. Like the technology and the audio and all that stuff. We talk a lot about that. But yeah, I mean, my entire career is based around sports.
And mine was, up until recently, based on music and performance.
I mean, and there's equipment setups that are, part of the conversation, but they're done, vastly differently. That's why I picked radio. So I'm, nobody's watching me, and I like it that way.
I understand that part.
Because it was, back to taking college classes. Well, what video classes are you going to take? The ones you say I have to. And that's the only ones I took because there was never any interest. And I'm doing things now in my career that I never thought I would do because I'm more of a, office in a role of promotions and social media and promoting our cluster to our listening audience. And it's what's that? Our cluster of stations.
Okay, thank you. Now I understand.
Yeah, we have 8 stations in our cluster in the greater Youngstown area with varying of formats. So I'm trying to keep up on all of that with the contesting that we do and the social media promotions and a lot of new things that the last 2 years have taught us how to do with Zoom promotions that I never knew anything about till April of 2020.
I started doing these interviews on Zoom, and yeah, I'm going to rag on them. My very first interview for the station was a band called Souls Condemned. I've known these guys for 4 or 5 years. I mean, this is like technical death metal. It's very hard and it's crazy fast. And the audio and the interview was just pathetic. And at that point in time, I switched over to Skype. And other than one interview with a very good friend where I forgot to push record, yes, I'm admitting it, I haven't had a problem.
Well, and that reminds me of, I told you about my show last week. Dave, who's a mutual friend of both of ours, and Dave and I go back to, high school, so almost 30 years now. He tells me, because he was out of town, he says, all you have to do is turn the microphone on and everything else will run automatically. It goes live on Facebook. It goes live all the other places that our shows are available. The in-studio recording starts automatically. All you have to do is turn the microphones on. So I look, and each microphone pot has a red light and a green light. One is on, one is off, is what I assumed.
Yeah.
The red light was, if the red light was lit up, it meant all the microphones in the studio were muted. So I just assumed if I hit the green light, it's going to turn all the microphones on, which it did in my headphones. But it didn't send the audio out to the live listening audience.
Ow.
You had to hit the mute button to unmute, not hit the mic button to turn the mics on.
That's how most pro-level mixers work. I don't know radio mixers, but, audio mixers, yes, you have to turn off the mute. And
this is a newer mixing board that we just upgraded to in the last few months, and it's fantastic. It has, I'll use another radio term, hotkeys on it.
Yeah.
So you can, sound effects and commercials and whatever you want. It's fantastic. But 12 minutes into it, I got a text from my father-in-law who was listening. I got a text from Dave. All I said was turn the microphones on and you'd be fine. Just push the red button. Don't touch anything else. So I said, well, why didn't you tell me that in the first place?
Yes.
You just said turn the mics on.
Not turn it on.
So I just had to unmute. Once I did that, everything was fine because I did a 2-hour show yesterday and had no problems. But yeah, those were the parting words. Your only problem will be is if you don't turn the microphones on right. that happened. And my guest made an hour drive to our studio to join me last week.
Ah,
And he is also indirectly my boss.
okay.
So yeah, he is who I answer to at the college for games. And then it
Okay.
goes up the chain from there.
Of course. Everybody
So,
answers to somebody.
And because of that error, I was like, well, it's fine. The studio recording has it. No, the studio recording picks up what goes out over the air, not what's in the actual studio.
Yeah.
So the 53-minute podcast was 31. And I had, my intro and my plug to my sponsor of 3 years who, thank you in every sense of the word, because, finding a sponsor has been incredible to have the same one for 3 years. But like the first thing you hear is me asking my guest a question, not identifying the name of the show, introducing myself, introducing my guests, mentioning the sponsor, how you can find us, none of that. It was, so what do you think about? And it's been the most listened to show we've had so far.
So was it dead air or what? What was going out?
Over the app on Live 365 was nothing. It was dead air for 12 minutes. Because for that feed, the microphones were still muted. When I turned them on in the studio, it was in my headset. But when I noticed there was a problem, under normal circumstances, there's bump music when I'm supposed to, it says, hey, wrap up, it's time to take a break.
Yeah.
And we went past the bump music and I never heard it. So I knew something was wrong at that point.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was warned of one mistake and I made it.
I'm kind of new to this, and people are still kind of flabbergasted that I'm putting myself in front of a microphone and letting people hear it. That's freaked out a bunch of people that know me well. But I'm having fun with this. And I'm not hardcore. I just do what I feel like doing when I feel like doing it, as far as, the interviews go, which is why I really like the idea for this show, because it's pretty much what I do on all of them, but they're all, keyed to something, a business, a band, an arts group. I've done a few interviews with local theater people and all kinds of fun stuff with like that. I did heavy coverage on the in June, back Pride Month, for the local Pride. And we start talking, and that's it. And, no one has said anything bad about it. And a number of people who said, I don't know how you do this. I don't understand. I've never been more comfortable doing an interview in my life, because I wasn't being held to anything.
It's just two people talking. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And, most 60% of the people I have on here, I know, thus far. And so, what questions to ask, and should the need arise, which buttons to push.
And what questions not to ask.
That's more important than the questions to ask. It really, really is.
It absolutely is, because you control, like when I first learned how to do this, I was always thinking of the next question I was going to ask. And when you're doing that, you're not listening to what the person is telling you.
That's correct.
Because there may be something out of that answer in a different direction that you want to go. And if you just kind of casually heard it, you didn't really hear it, and your interview could have been so much better.
Yeah.
And that was a big problem for me. I was always thinking of the next question. And, my PD at the time when I first started doing the talk show spent a lot of time with me about, your questions are written out, but it doesn't mean you have to ask them. And you just it kind of flows better, because it's been weird. The catchphrase for the show for mine is, it all starts local. and that's what I want it to be. It's primarily about local sports, but I've been lucky enough to have a few opportunities fall into my place where friends of mine, their careers have taken off, so they've done amazing things, and then I can get them as a guest. Or like one of my biggest gets was a now retired Hall of Fame hockey announcer who is considered, the greatest ever. And you know how I got him on the show? A friend of mine posted, "Hey, I'm going to have Doc Emmerich on my podcast." So I messaged him and I said, "How'd you get him?" And he told me. And I tried, because you can't be afraid to ask somebody. And if they tell you no, you move on to the next person.
Sure. Yep. I've had more than my fair share, far more no's than I have had yeses.
I mean, and a lot of it is, it's local coaches, it's local athletes. Wow, I just said, I should really stop that. I've got games coming up next week, and I've been doing that a lot lately. It's just, having a conversation with someone. I said it on my show yesterday. My favorite coaches to talk to are the ones that we don't talk about football before we start doing the recording, or the ones that remember my name.
Uh-huh.
I mean, a radio guy doesn't count, because I've gotten that a lot over the years. There's a few, because, I've done this for a while and they've been around for a while, that, when the conversation has nothing to do with their football team, before you start the recording, that's when you're in a comfortable spot with the person you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen every day.
I'm going to make a little confession here.
All right.
I was, as you may well have been able to guess, a little nervous when I started doing this.
Tonight?
No, the first interviews in general.
Oh, right. Well, of course.
I listened to a bunch of your shows.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just, you know what? I've done a lot of them now, so that's where it kind of comes from.
And I find that just go with the flow.
Uh-huh.
Go with the flow. Everything else is, I had somebody and he wanted questions, complete series of questions I was going to ask him. I'm like, no, man.
Mm-mm.
He's like, well, and he's like you. Well, what are we going to talk about? Whatever. Ended up being a great interview.
I've never been asked, questions like what the questions are going to be ahead of time, but like I do the rundown for the show, and then I send it to Dave because he's my producer, so he needs to know, what the plan is and who he's got to call and all that stuff. But I got through. I was interviewing someone, and it was short, quick answers. So we were 8 minutes into a 21-minute interview, and I had asked all 6 questions that I had written out already. And that's when the fun begins. When you now have to fill, the next, 12 minutes or whatever it was, not having any prepared questions, because I got a text from him and it said, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "Just watch." Because that's when the work begins, when you have to find other things to talk about. And there's always something else. Because when I first started doing games for the college, we lost 33 games in a row.
I remember.
And people don't want to tune in and hear you say, 150 times, it's 65-0 in the third quarter.
Uh-huh.
So you talk about what they're studying. You talk about, their brother that's on the team. You talk about the dog they just adopted. You talk about, their extracurriculars, their academics, which is a massive thing at Grove City. Our athletes are unbelievable students, because we had a football All-American that was also an academic All-American. So, that doesn't happen every day.
No, that does not happen.
But you also have to think about, in the league Grove City is in, our schools are Case Western Reserve, Carnegie Mellon. Now, these are football players. These are people that happen to play football that are students first.
Yes.
And that's what I appreciate about it. Because there's no scholarships at this level. You're playing because you want to. And the odds of you playing professionally are probably less than 1%.
But you're having fun.
Right. You're playing because you love it. And a lot of them are multi-sport athletes that, are carrying, 3.5 or higher grade point averages on top of it. Finance majors and accounting majors. And, and it's just like, no, it's stuff that I would never even consider. But it made for fantastic filler because you don't want to hear that score over and over again.
No, you really don't.
But I got to experience the first win. I got to experience, multi-consecutive winning seasons, multi-consecutive years where we won bowl games, and it's kind of balanced out, and it's been a lot of fun.
You've had a bit of a journey with those guys.
Yeah, because it was bad, and now it's incredible.
How did you start?
My friend that was on my show was a former high school football partner of mine when I worked in our Western Pennsylvania stations.
Uh-huh.
And our previous announcer retired, and I got a phone call. And then I had to work my way through the chain of people at the university and resume, demo tape, all the typical stuff like that. And 12 years later, they keep asking me back. It got to the point where the first 5 years, every fall, I would email my boss and I said, are you going to have me back? And at one point, he finally was like, just stop asking. If we don't want you back, we'll tell you.
Yeah, you'll know.
And that's expanded into doing basketball games. It's expanded into doing, we have baseball and softball. We live stream a lot of stuff. And it has been probably the greatest experience I've had so far, because it's a small knit group of people that really care. To the point where, I'm on a texting relationship with the coaches. If there's anything I can do to promote the university, I do it. And it doesn't happen, all that often, but it's one of those where I realized I was never smart enough to probably go to that school, but I want to tell other people about it.
See, here's the giveaway, okay? Here's there's one word you keep using that will tell anybody paying attention how much you enjoy doing this. You keep saying we and not they.
And you know what? That is, in this industry that I'm in, it's the most difficult thing, because there's times where you have to separate that, we, when you have to be honest about what you're seeing sometimes.
Yes.
But, I will get where they say, they sent me a care package of things for this season a couple weeks back. And, I text everybody, thank you. And, it's, thank you for what you do for us. And it's just one of those where I've said it, I am a very, very small part about what they do, but people can find out about the school when they're a prospective athletic student by putting on the stream and listening to me.
Huh?
And I know that's not going to factor in their final decision.
Probably not.
But, I'm one of the first ways they're introduced to it. And there are not only students, but athletes from all over the country that come to Tiny Grove City, Pennsylvania, Colorado and Florida and Texas. And you name it.
So
because it's education.
Yeah, I'm going to say they're coming for the education. They're not coming for the football or the baseball or.
They are now, to a certain extent, more than they used to for the football.
Yeah, there's a reason to.
It's been a lot of fun. And, when I first started, I was like, I don't know how long I'm going to be there, what this is going to turn into, because I was offered another opportunity at the about exact same time. And they were different avenues in sports broadcasting. And I've never regretted the decision for one moment.
That's great.
Because I went to a mentor and I said, what do I do? And he said, what do you want to do? What avenue do you want your career to take? And I said, well, I want to be a play-by-play guy. Well, then you know what you want to do. Go take that job. And he was right. And I've had to tell him that a couple of times, which he enjoyed hearing. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were right. I've been there for 12 years. Yes, you were right. And, as long as I don't say something I shouldn't on the air, hopefully it lasts for a lot longer.
That would be cool. I can hear in your voice how much you're enjoying doing that. And so that's all I need.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where I don't have to prepare as much as I used to for my school, but I still have to put in the time for the other school. And most times I call a high school game on Friday night, either Friday night after I get home or Saturday morning before I hit the road. It's at least another hour or two of homework. Because if you don't do the homework, then people know.
Yeah.
And if you've done it before and you can't keep it up, then people know. And the best part about it is, for me, it's the people that I work with there. It's the guys I call games with. Because the funny story is, I work with one guy at home, I work with another guy on the road, and those two guys call high school football games together.
Okay.
So it's they do games together on Friday night, and I worked with either one of them or both of them on Saturday, depending where we are. And it's been that way for 12 years. And I mean, no matter what it is, the people that I work with make it easy. Because, they go out of their way where I walk into the basketball gym and the engineer is literally hanging off the basketball hoop. And I said, what's going on? Well, I thought that game would sound better if we put a mic on the hoop. When people, shoot baskets or shoot foul shots, it's just another aesthetic to put and the sound in the background. So he's hanging off the hoop in a ladder trying to mount a microphone where it's not going to get hit by a basketball.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's the little things that make the broadcast sound better.
It's something I would not have thought of doing. I get it. You bring the audience. I've learned this from theater. The farther in you can bring the audience, the more they're going to enjoy their stay.
Yeah, that's somebody told me, well, you're such an old school announcer. I said, thank you. That's a compliment to me. Those old school guys, and it's most of them that I grew up with are either retired or have passed away. Because to me, and obviously I know it's not your realm, but to me, Vin Scully is the greatest announcer that ever lived.
Most of the planet seems to believe that, because when he passed just a few days ago, that was my Facebook feed for 2 days.
Yep. And someone I always dreamed of meeting, and it didn't happen, but it's that he was that, like, you felt like, pull up a chair and I'm going to tell you a story about tonight's game. And that's what I want to do. I want, like, we're just like, I want you to feel like I'm just talking to you, because that's what he did. And yeah, I've had a lot of opportunities to talk and interview with some great announcers. My friend who started in this area has broken unbelievable barriers in the National Hockey League this year. He became the first professional African-American hockey announcer in North America.
Whoa.
And he is amazing. He works for the Seattle Kraken, the new expansion team.
Okay.
And
Kraken,
then, yeah, beware. And then he was part of the first all African-American television broadcast of a hockey game. He is especially gifted in this, in the industry. And he's someone that, I can call on as a friend, and he's been on the podcast multiple times. And, well, how do you know him? Well, he did hockey games in Youngstown, and we stayed friends. I mean, there's no real secret to it. He's gotten onto a national level now, and he got national not only sports coverage because of his position, but he got national news coverage, and he deserves it. So it's just, it's to be able to lean on and listen to a lot of these guys, and you take a little bit from this one, you take a little bit from that one, and you make your own style. Because I called my first home run in the minor leagues, and that night my friend called me and said, "Did you listen to that?" And I said, "No, not yet. I didn't like to script anything." He goes, "Go pull up this announcer." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "You ripped off his home run call." Hall of Fame legendary announcer had no idea because I didn't script it. And never use that call again.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because you have to know what level you're on and what level they're on, and it's a very different level.
Yeah, it's and it's good to have people out there in the business. There's still a handful of people from my theater past that I'm still in touch with, and some of them are doing anything else but, and some of them are plodding along, and some of them are doing really great. And it's theater. It's either in your blood or it's not, and that's just that.
Right.
I go through, and especially the last couple of years, I've done one show in the last 2.5 years. And it was the community theater, and they called me and they said, "We can't do this without you. There's just too damn many cues."
How do you say no to that?
And, I'm like, all right. And it was in a less than, it was not in a great venue. Okay. I mean, it wasn't. And it was, I can't remember the name of it. It's a really famous, it was a Christmas play. Oh my God.
I mean, there's a lot of those.
No, the one about the BB gun.
A Christmas Story.
They did that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like 4 areas on the stage, and they're constantly swapping what's lit. And then there's scenes down in front of the stage, and they're like, "We don't have anybody that can keep up with this. What do you need to do this?" And, and that just, it makes you feel good.
Of course.
It was the third hardest show I've ever done. The first hardest was working back with my buddy Michael Candela, and it was at the college here in town, and I ran live mics, audio cues, lighting cues, and video cues by myself.
Yeah. No, thank you.
I call it a hand ballet because if I missed a step,
the dominoes all fell.
Oh, I could pull it back together, and it never happened during a performance, thankfully, but it happened during a couple rehearsals, and getting it back together. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. I know what goes on during a game, during the 2-minute timeouts. What has to get done, in a modern era now. I probably get several hundred texts of scores in a 3-hour game. You're trying to tweet out updates to people on social media with the scores and what's happening. People are coming in and out of the booth. You're talking to your stats guy because I am spoiled enough. Thank you. Michael Rickard is my stats guy and my spotter. And thank you to him for just, wanting to be part of the crew and, talking to my partner. So I know what goes on in 2 minutes before we start talking again. So I can't imagine a nonstop of that going through the entire performance.
It was fun. It really was, and the second one was in a much better location, but it was another one of these 5 zones constantly changing. The script for the second one was Waiting for MacArthur. It takes place during World War II, and I can't remember any of the quotes and stuff, but basically he said, "I'll be back," and he was talking about this island. And eventually he comes back, and it was the story of a nurse, graduated nursing school, went into the military. The island was Corregidor. And ended up on this island as a nurse. And the show was such an unusual structure. There were no conversations. Everything that happened was letters. Mom reading the daughter's letters, the former teacher reading the letter she wrote to the nurse, and back and forth, but there was no real dialogue. It was a bunch of monologues, and they changed in a fraction of a second, and that person had better be lit and their mic had better be live.
Yeah, otherwise it all falls apart.
I went back and I dug into the Internet Archive to find realistic World War II military sound effects. I had a massive library of World War II era music that played before, during the intermission, and as people were leaving. We had guys, older guys, get up and walk toward the door and walk past someone at the ticket booth and stuff, and I have to go. I have to go. And they're like, "Why?" And they're like, it's I'll censor myself here. It's too real.
Mm-hmm.
It's too real. It sounds real. It looks real. I can't. I have to go.
That's when you know you did your job right.
And it happened a number of times over 6 performances. And yes, that's when you know that you're doing it right, because when you can take people back in time, you've done it right.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's how you want to include everything, because recreating that memory may be difficult, but if you don't do it right, then you're not doing it justice, and you're not giving those people credit. No,
you're not. And it's still my go-to show to talk about, my favorite show. That was it. It was just bar none. It was my absolute favorite show. I can't remember where Jordy, the director, he moved somewhere. I think it might be Tucson. We talk once in a while. Shout out Jordy there, man. You put on a hell of a show. I'm proud to be a part of it, and I still talk about it to this day. So we did something good.
Well, that's like for me. Well, why do you play the band in the background at halftime of a high school game? Why do you take the time to look up the band director's name and try to find out how many members are in the band? Well, one, because they practice hard too for their performances, and two, even though I'm calling the football game, I'm still a band nerd at heart.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I gotcha.
So that's something I look up on the school webpage for the home school in particular every Friday. And it's just something I've always done, because that was part of my first round of Friday nights.
Yeah.
Because I knew, and the 200 people that I was with in the stands, there was probably 20 of us that paid attention to the game, and the rest did not.
Well, yeah, and I used to say, yeah, I'm from Hubbard, and football is what they do before and after the band plays. Because in my day, it was kind of, that was a little realer than most people would want to admit.
Well, and and for the most part at that time, football wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And football had a rebirth in Hubbard in the late 80s and into the early 90s. And our current head coach, I believe he's been there 15 years, and he's never had a losing season.
Oh, wow.
He's had a 500 season. So, 5-5.
Yeah.
But he's never had a losing season. And he's an alumni.
Oh, wow.
So that's
give him a plug, man.
His name is Brian Hoffman. He graduated a couple years before me, and he does a fantastic job with the program, and he is always available for media, which I appreciate very much. So yeah, we never crossed paths in school because he's got me by a couple years, but he's done a fantastic job there. And I never thought I would say this, but it's getting close to my bedtime.
Well, not knowing what we're going to talk about, we've got just over an hour and a half in right now.
Uh-huh.
And I've had a ball. I really have.
Absolutely. I would love to do this again.
We will do this again, but before we go,
okay,
I need you to do one thing.
All right.
All of these projects you're involved in,
mm-hmm.
give me their name, give me their I blanked. Name, website, Facebook, plug them all.
Okay.
One at a time. Plug them all.
I have been the play-by-play announcer for Grove City College in Grove City, Pennsylvania for 12 years. They're a small Division III college just outside of Pittsburgh. And I've done football, basketball for them for 12 years. I've been with Cumulus Media out of Youngstown, off and on for over 20 years. I'm sports director at AM 1240. I am a promotions assistant in the promotions department, and myself and Dave Ferris work under Jim Craven for Western Reserve Radio. That's where my podcast is live. East Coast 5:05. We start on every Tuesday and go till 6 o'clock. It's also available on a multitude of different podcasting platforms. It's called By All Means. I love the name. I use it for a lot of other things now too, because it just works. And it's about to get really busy for me for football starting next week.
That's why I wanted to get this in now, because I know you go nuts here at the end of the year.
Yeah, game on Thursday and Friday next week. And then it'll be a game on Friday and a game on Saturday for about 12 straight weeks.
Good times.
Yes.
All
Didn't
right,
know what
man.
the heck this was gonna be, but it was a lot of fun.
It was fun, and it'll be up in a few days. I'll let you know, and we'll run from there. Thank you, Mark, for sharing some time with me, man.
You got it. Thank you.
All righty. Have a good night.